So when we started off, his limit was 3,000 bob. We enhanced one to 6,000 because he's a good borrower and repair. Every day it's the same. In fact, he was telling us he has been using hustler fund money to bring in sugar. A sack of sugar, according to him, was costing 9,000. So every morning, he borrows 6,000, he adds 3,000, 9,000 he brings in sugar because he's selling kadogo kadogo. By the end of the day, the following day, again, he does the same and saves. So what I try to say, why are we doing this? And this is very important. Because now that borrower who has 4.5 million has now acquired a credible credit rating, which in the near future can walk to any bank right now and will not be asked about title book, will not be asked about the credit or the loan which he wants. So we've been able to give people collateral which they could not access. That's the major goal of Hustler Fund, because it's giving you 500 shillings. If you can be trusted by 500 shillings, you can equally be trusted by 1 million shillings, and so on and so forth. So it has happened, and for majority of us in this room who do not have means, who do not have property, I will tell you, we are giving an opportunity to start growing your collateral system in terms of credit rating to access you to credit in the market.
Thank you so much. Because of time.
Do you want to finalize for me?
Because of time.
Okay, give me a minute, I finalize. Thank you.
Because of time.
So, allow me to, or do you finalize for me?
Because of
Thank
time,
you. Give me a minute, I finalize. I just say so, isn't it? Thank you. I say give me a minute, I finalize, isn't it? But if you can finalize for me, so there's no problem.
Give you another time to finalize.
No, I'm just finalizing. So, thank you so much, the organizers of this event. All I was finalizing, and it's just good manners that we finalize, right? Was to say, in such kind of a forum, when we discuss about governance, let's centralize the economic development agenda aspect, and we'll be willing to work together. My department, our ministry is open to bring on board all actors that interact with the population of Kenya. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the President and the executive arm, I cannot leave here before bringing his compliments, because he's our team leader in the executive and is going to work with you. We are open. We work for the private sector. We work for the Kenyan people. And I'm sure where we are headed, it's very bright. And Kenya will overcome all this challenge. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Another round of applause for the PS MSMEs. Susan Mangeni talking about the contribution of MSMEs to the economic transformation. She has a lot to say, and we'll have to provide another platform to do so. But thank you so much for your time. We're almost coming to an end of our program this afternoon. This other session is going to be very, very quick because we have some closing remarks from His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, former Vice President, as well as former Prime Minister Honorable Raila Odinga. But before they make their speeches, this session is going to be moderated by Honorable Gitonga Mukunji, who is the Chair, Young Parliamentarians Association, and is also the Member of Parliament, Manyata constituency. Please be fast on this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. I was telling Baba that she has brought up very strong women. You can see PS Mangeni could not even blink when she wanted to finish. Raila Amolo Odinga, Baba, aka Baba, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, former Vice President, and the convener of this great event, Director Conrad, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of parliament who are here, all protocols observed, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I will be very, very, very strict with time because I can see we are not doing well. But first, let me introduce myself. Again, my name is Gitonga Mokonji. People say AKA form ni kujituma because najitumanga sana. I am the member of parliament of a place called Manyata in Embu County. It is supposed to be Manhattan, but but we cannot pronounce Manhattan, so we say Manyata. And I'm also the chair Kenya Young Parliamentarians, which is basically parliamentarians that are young, below the age of 40 years old. We are close to 71 members of parliament in that age bracket. So I am very proud to be their chair. I'm also very proud to be the moderator of this session. And I will go directly to the panelists or the speech. The people will make the speech. I don't know whether to call them here or to give them the podium. I need to be guided there. The podium? Okay, thank you. So in that case, I will start with, what is this? I will start with my good friend, nominated MP, Honorable Irene Mayaka, who is also my Secretary General in Kenya Young Parliamentarian. Please welcome Mayaka with a round of applause. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair. Allow me to ride on the protocols already observed because of time, but also acknowledge the presence of my political leadership, led by His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I don't call him former, I call him the second Prime Minister of Kenya. To also His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, both of them being my political party leadership. To the leadership of KAS, I don't want to say the full names because I don't know Germany, led by Dr. Annette, of course, distinguished guests, good afternoon. As has been said, my name is Irene Mayaka. I am nominated in the Parliament of Kenya to represent workers by the Orange Democratic Movement Party. And I'm just here to briefly just speak about transformation in the youth leadership space. And I'll just begin by saying that, number one, for us who are young in leadership, and of course we are not the first ones in Kenya, but the number one thing that we always believe in is that for you to even be able to have any level of success, you must have a mentor. And for me, every time I have an opportunity to speak before my mentor, my political father, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, it's a big pleasure. And I'll just briefly tell you one thing that he taught me once when I was in the county assembly. Because I was nominated in the county assembly, but didn't have an opportunity to serve until the last 2 years. Why? Because of an election petition that went on and on. But I remember going to see him one day in the office, just after the handshake. And I said to him, Baba, now that you and Uhuru are brothers, how about you speak to him so that this issue can be fast-tracked? And he said to me, and I remember very well, that he doesn't want that to happen, that he wants me to go through that process, because by the time I'm done with it, it will put me at a better place as a political leader than I am right now. That it would harden me and make me a better person. So I went through it, given his advice, and now I am in Parliament. And for that, I always say, always have a mentor that will tell you that it can't be easy. Don't assume that things should be easy, things should be given to you on a silver platter. You have to work for them. And when that is done for you as young leaders, the next step for us is also that we must always push back the ladder to other head, formed an organization of young women, because there's one thing about being a young leader, but there's also another thing about being a young woman leader in politics in this country. But the other day we noticed that it's also not easy being just a woman in politics, as the case of Kawera was. Yeah. So the experience and the tribulations that you have to go through are twice as hard. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that politics is also like a career. So you have to take it seriously. When you're in any leadership space, it doesn't have to be within the county assembly space or the National Assembly space, but any other leadership space, you have to take it seriously. Because politics is a career. You have to get out there, get knowledgeable, hold the hands of other leaders as well, and ensure that you learn how to make your job better. The other thing also that I want to talk about is that we are the voice of the youth in the spaces that we are. When we are in legislation, and I was just listening to PS talking about the young hustler who has been getting loans and getting to the next level. But for me, one of the concerns I have is that we're actually reinventing a wheel that was already working. Because yes, there's a hustler fund, but we also had the Youth Empowerment Development Fund that was working quite perfectly. And that young people didn't need to go to the bank, because why should I get the hustler fund and then the next level I still have to go to the bank? The reason why the Youth Development Fund was created is so that these young people don't have to go that direction, that they can actually get these funds, pay back, and continue in their growth path. And my challenge to PS and his and the space she is in is that they need to go back and have a look at that, because it works very well. Why should the people who were already at a level of getting up to 2 million be told to start afresh, to start getting 500 shillings? It doesn't make any sense. It means you're retrogressing backwards. Yeah, we are in a space in this country where being young has become expensive. Yeah, and as I just conclude, and we need to be the voice of these young people. When we are told that now you cannot get an ID with 200 shillings, that you have to cough 1,000 shilling, the young people back in Nyamira cannot afford the 1,000 shilling. And it's up to myself, Mukunji, and the other young leaders to raise these issues continuously, to be the voice of the young people in this country, and to continue engaging and telling the government when it's wrong, and also to tell the government when it's doing things in the right way, okay, so that we can continuously grow the spaces of young people. And as I conclude, because the hand of someone who is there, and will hold your hands as well, so that we continuously work together, and also, finally, do not be afraid, because you're the voice of the people, and do not allow anyone to tell you that you're the leaders of tomorrow, because we start now. Even Akina Baba, Akina His Excellency Kalonzo began when they were young people. So nobody should stop you, but also we also encourage our older generation, our leaders who are older than us,
Maybe you can give her a better clap, please. We have to support our women in leadership. All right, I'm told this podium should go up. Can I help? No. Okay. Yeah, this is better. I can see all of you now. Now, I want to call Honorable Alex Matere, who is a youth policy expert. Please, you can do a minute and a half, so that Baba cannot, we cannot delay Baba for other things. Thank you. Clap for him, please, as he comes to address.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mukunji. Allow me to stand on the already established protocol, but with special mention to His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, who gave me an opportunity to serve in his office as an intern immediately after I finished my university education. The theme for this conference is transforming a nation. But when I was given the theme by my friend Nathaniel Akadima, I decided to tweak a bit and I talked about Kenya in the 21st reality. And the reality of Kenya in the 21st century, in Mathare or in Kangemi or in Mukuru or in Seikuru or in Cherengani, where I come from, is more likely to sleep hungry than a young person did in 1963. That a young person in 2023 in Kenya is more likely to miss having an identification card than a young person did in 1963. That is the reality of the country that we are living today. Secondly, is that we have a youth bulge. And thank you so much, the PS for MSMEs, for touching on it. The projection is that by 2050, the population of this country is going to be about 92 million. Currently, the youth unemployment rate stands at 35%. The Kenyan youth unemployment rate is more than that one of Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda combined. That is the reality of the country that we are talking today. To worsen it is that now we have high cost of living. So we have youth that do not have a skill or a training in anything, or those ones who even don't have access to any form of employment or any form of income generation. And we expect them to get an education, to get a skill, to get a training, and also provide for their young families. That is the reality that we are living in today. Third is that every generation is called for something that matters during their lifetime. For Tom Mboya, Masinde Muliro, Pio Gamapinto was the freedom and liberation of this country. For Raila, in absentia, with due respect, Gitobu Imanyara, Mukisa Kitui, it was for safeguarding our democracy and multipartyism in this country. For our generation, as the young people, it's about the emancipation of the young people from the shackles of desperation, and that we are more than the trophies that we have won. Thank you so much.
Briefly, first of all, I'm very happy and delighted to be participating in this inaugural conference of where majority of the young people are, where the majority of the young leaders are, and they are not doing anything about it. We have been told of stories of hustler fund. Baba Raila Odinga, when he was young, he managed and tried in the transformation of the multi-party democracy. When we were just having lunch down there, he was giving us a story of the young Turks of the 1990s. If you read the history of His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, when he joined politics, I think he was less than 25 years that time. He rose, became a member of parliament, became a minister. This country
in the Senate. And key word there is bipartisan, meaning we have members from both the ruling coalition and also the opposition. I want to say that being a young leader, there is one thing that cuts across the young leadership in any part of this world, that we can make mistakes, we can try things, we can learn and unlearn things as we move on, as we are getting prepared to even big up the young members, is that you don't have to comply with your seniors. I am in the government side, but whenever there is an issue, I have to stand out and say what is in my mind. That is very important. When the opposition also have a problem that we as young leaders are not complying with, it is always important for the young leaders in this it is extremely hard for young people to get into political positions. You know, fellow selves getting in, because stand strong and stand against all the chaos and atrocities that are meant to derail young people to get into positions. so that we can actually make a better community and a better society. And I want to touch something that involves our electoral system. I have heard many people say that our electoral system is actually not right. But it is a high time we do something that is going to solve that thing once and for all, so that young people can get chances to get into to suppress the leadership of young people. And it has come even into the university level. And one of the things that we have taken as young parliamentarians is to correct that. We need to go back to the voices of our university students having something to speak. The leadership of this time does not really reflect what we used to see before. Myself, I started my leadership in the University of Nairobi, in the leadership of SONU. Many of my members started there. But right now, we have a system that is using some sort of delegates. And we no longer get the voice of the university student, who should actually have a voice for the benefit of this country. If you speak to Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Orengo, and the rest, they will tell you how important that voice was when there was Moi of this world. There is also something I want to touch on, which is the mismanagement of institutions touching with our young people. And I'm happy that the government has recognized that, and their deliberate efforts to correct the mismanagement of institutions touching with our young people. NYS, one of the institutions that used to touch lives in the 90s, these days is a shell. But we need to actually empower these institutions so that our young people can be able to do better. I was very happy to listen to PS Mangenyi, whose department actually is at the heart of the young people. I wish you well. And all those deliberate efforts you guys are making, we have to hold you into account. I have one proposal for you. Hustler Fund is a good thing, but we cannot remain at 500 shillings or 1,000 because it will not actually help a lot. We need to get into million. We need to get into 500,000 so that our young people can be deliberately helped to grow economically. And I believe that is something that you have to consider and you are considering. I want to say that when it comes to opportunities, we need to empower our youth wings in the political parties. Because political parties in Kenya, and I hope I don't get in trouble because of this, they are owned by individuals. And they are not owned by the young people. And that means that for you to get anywhere, you have got to be in the right books with the bosses who own these political parties. That is actually a retrogressive thing that we should actually correct and move forward from there. Because while we are talking of improvement of our economy, our democracy, and we are very loud saying about democracy when it comes to general elections, but nominations and running of political parties is the biggest scandal we have in this country. We have to correct that. Let the democracy of our country start at the political party level so that we can improve the democracy of our country. On economy, yesterday, before I came for the State of the Nation, I was attending a farmers' conference. There are some farmers that I have helped to get water project, and I had called them for a meeting. I want to tell you that that meeting was attended by very many people, but all of them were above 60 years of age. Not even one single young person. That means our youths are not participating in agriculture. Our youths don't have an opportunity to participate in agriculture. And it should shock many that 70% of our population is young people, but they are not being productive in production of our food. And I want to say that, and I have advised the government many times, that we have to have means of getting our young people to farms. We cannot all be hustlers lying around. We cannot all go to border sector. We have to have our youths being empowered and being given opportunity to get into farming. When I was sharing lunch with the Honorable Raila Odinga and the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, we had a very interesting conversation of ensuring that we get our people to consolidate land so that that land can be productive enough and our young people can be used in the production, and then many people can be given the affordable housing that we are giving, that is actually a government plan, and be able to grow our economy together. And I think that is something that I propose that can be done. In conclusion, I want to say that African leadership has always been born from struggle. In 1963, when we were
four began 2 years later, and through a people-driven national dialogue, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was finally promulgated to widespread acclaim at home, regionally, and internationally. Even though this living document is acknowledged as one of Africa's most progressive constitutions, there are still some aspects of its composition that, in its 13th year of existence, require serious deliberation. We in the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition hold the view that we cannot transform our beloved nation if we do not fundamentally address those Agenda 4 issues of 2008 and those concerns that we have outlined in the National Dialogue Committee, which have christened NADCO, and which I'm happily, as fate would have it, a co-chair. Our top priority, which was to address the cost of living, is demonstrated by the growing gaps in poverty and inequality brought about by harsh and burdensome taxes that take money out of people's pockets rather than putting it therein. And Susan, you're in the business trying to get people to put their money in their pockets. You haven't quite succeeded. Because this is where the issue is. Kenyans are crying, heavy burden of taxation. I have never seen a nation anywhere in the world which can develop on the basis of overtaxing its citizens, particularly during such economic reality. If anybody has one example in the world, we talked of the Marshall Plan and others, where you overtax your citizen in order to get out of depression, I will be happily able to listen to you. Despite the conflicting explanations, the primary causes of economic slow growth, indeed depression, are not solely attributable to global events, but rather economic mismanagement and endemic corruption. The last three presidential election results are strongly disputed, indicating that we have not addressed transparency, accountability, and impunity, particularly regarding our electoral management process. That is why we in Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance Coalition insisted upon not only audit of 2022 general election, but a reconstitution of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. We too in this NADCO process spoke to the deepening of our political gains by ensuring there will be fidelity to the Constitution as regards interference with political parties. The story that has been going on, merry-go-round in Jubilee, I'm a very key member of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. It's disturbing. We have had to call a spade a spade. In these talks, we are not sparing any situation. And we are saying it is improper to disorganize Jubilee. Because by disorganizing Jubilee, you are trying to disorganize Azimio. And by implication, paying lip service to multi-party democracy. And this is our view. Our agenda items Other bipartisan talks at Bomas of Kenya also included addressing the imbalance of public office appointments that were biased towards specific communities and poorly represented the aspirations of two-gender rule. This, we strongly argued, continued to undermine the ideals of national cohesion and unity. I would want, for example, a very honest conversation about the recently concluded recruitment at the Kenya Defense Forces. Mukwanja and the rest of you in Parliament, please, if you want to heal this country, and I heard the President yesterday say 80% of recruitment to KDF now will be from National Youth Service, but before we get there, we want the statistics, ethnic balance. By the way, it's a matter in the Constitution. We want to know, of the 42, 43 communities, what percentage did the people in Embu in Manyata get? And you will be amazed. And when I go to the conflict in Rwanda after the genocide, in fact, the problem in Rwanda and Burundi is basically this. 84% of the population are Hutus in both countries, and 14% are Tutsis in both countries. At some stage, the whole leadership of Burundi, from the president to deputy speaker, were eliminated because they went through a hugely successful election, where if it is the majority must have their way, and the minority to have their say, that happened. But people were hurting. And what happened? Killings. So, in my view, if you disturb the army, if you do not have a professional military in Kenya or anywhere in the region, ladies and gentlemen, you do not have a country. Please, you can take that one to the bank, even if it is a hustler bank. You cannot disturb if you, and the reason our military men and women have done very well in terms of peacekeeping everywhere, right, is because we have had a professional army. But if we have a tribalized army, and I still insist, I want you guys, if the parliament, I'm told, when you people in Kenya Kwanza went to State House and complained to President Ruto that hamwezi kwenda nyumbani, wananchi wanapigia kelele because of taxation, he looked at you and told you, but you are the ones in parliament. Nyinyi ndio mmepitisha the Finance Act. So you now have to play your role. If you're going to do oversighting of this government, and I like the young parliamentarians, actually went in at 30, and I remained there. Yes, I think I should have been your member. Now I'll do the mentoring that our wonderful Mheshimiwa was talking about. I must conclude, ladies and gentlemen, before I invite our brother to come and make his remarks and close this consultative session. You know, we went to Bomas because Kenyans lost their lives. Kenyans, some of them wearing sufurias. Right? Let's not forget we buried nearly 70 people. Let's not forget a lot of them had their households and everything they owned destroyed. And even as recent as 2 weeks ago, 25,000 people in Mavoko had what they call their homes destroyed. And we hear you friends in Kenya Kwanza telling us affordable housing. What the fellows have put together what they could afford, and you destroy it, and you are telling them affordable housing? So, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot hope to transform our nation, indeed any nation, without meaningful dialogue, and that is built on mutual trust and confidence. Nonetheless, I've observed that during our 73 days, we've already done 73 days of the national dialogue, goodwill has occurred, and both sides have learned to respect one another's points of view. Therefore, I must congratulate my friend, my co-chair, Kimani Ichung'wah. When he came in, I told Kimani, I looked at him, I said, listen, you are young, I think you're very young, and a future is ahead of you. Me, I can go back to Sekuru, right, and forget about you guys. But if you don't succeed at these talks, history will judge you badly. And we must therefore confront the truth, and nothing but the truth. Our forefathers, the likes of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Odinga, were able to negotiate and compromise even with the British colonialists. When Mzee Jaramogi Odinga said, without Jomo Kenyatta there will be no freedom. Now, we should emulate them. 26 years ago, the late President Daniel Arap Moi's ruling party, KANU, by the way, KANU was organizing secretary for 12 good years. I was elected national organizing secretary the same day with the late Moses Mundamba Mudavadi, Wycliffe's father. So you can see if Mudavadi is beginning to look old. I started it with his late father. That is a beauty. When you are young, you see it all. And I therefore can pass this information, this wisdom, sometimes lack of it, depending on how you look at it, to the younger leaders. Mzee Moi then was able to accommodate dialogue. After the violence that followed 2007 elections and almost tore our nation apart, Mzee Kibaki, our brother Raila, and indeed myself, with our respective coalitions, were able to come together and work on creating a durable new constitution. Our history is replete with examples of
Nivea Fresh Deo. Now with new InfiniFresh formula, antibacterial power for 48-hour protection. Feel fresh in every moment.
Elevate your senses. Amplify the party. The zenith of music galas is here. The 12th.
And some of them say we are paid huge sums of money. I've not seen a cent. I'm giving my time and my everything to my country so that these things can succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to invite my brother and actually a soulmate, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, to come make his remarks and close this session. Well, we thank our partners, really. You know, German, you Kenyans may not know, CD1, the diplomatic corps, the number one, and to get number one CD, diplomatic corps, number one, means a lot. CD1, when we became independent, was Germany. And that tells you that Germans are truly our friends. We thank you. We continue to thank you. From my brother Raila Odinga, karibu sana. Sorry.
Yeah. You may be seated. To the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. I am happy to have been invited by Konrad Adenauer Foundation to come and be with you here this afternoon. Dankeschön. That means thank you very much. And I mean, my brother has talked so elaborately about so many things. At some stage, he was talking about desperation in our country, how Kenyans are dying because of lack of food and so on. Then I was telling some other people that maybe death is not a very bad thing. Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar that some cowards die so many times
before their death. That the brave do not taste of death but just once. And I want to say that death is a necessary evil that will come when it will come. And therefore there's no need to fear death. Then the other day I was talking to somebody else, he told me, you shouldn't really fear death. He said that, look, if you are sick, there are only two things that can happen to you. Either you will be treated and you will get well, they have nothing to fear. But if you don't recover, then you will die. If you die, there's nothing to fear. Why? Because you will either go to heaven or to hell. If you go to heaven, there's nothing to worry about. You will be okay. Even if you go to hell, there's nothing to worry about. You'll find so many of your friends. So spend a long time just greeting them. How are you? How are you? Before your time for the fire comes. So therefore, don't fear. You have nothing to fear as Kenyans. We will succeed in the long run. Now, I think this foundation has done a very good thing to choose to hold this conference. And they have told me that they're going to make it an annual event. So it is my real pleasure to speak to this distinguished audience at a time the country is undergoing profound challenges with no end in sight. My task is to share with you the alternative economic pathways proposed by the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party for the people of Kenya. I will do that with pleasure. But before I do that, let me thank the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, Stiftung, as it's called in German, for putting together this conference on the subject of transforming a nation. It is proper that a foundation that bears the name of the man who presided over the reconstruction of Germany after the Second World War should get us together so that we can discuss our own reconstruction. I happen to have been in Germany during its days of reconstruction and transformation, and I can say two things without fear of contradiction. First, transforming a nation takes hard, dedicated, and honest labor of leaders and citizens. Secondly, no nation is beyond reconstruction and transformation. All it takes is leadership. And I arrived when the war had ended, the Marshall Plan had been introduced, and the work of reconstruction was in its second phase. I found when Konrad Adenauer himself was still the chancellor, and at that time when I arrived, when you went to Germany, and then you went to Britain and France, who are part of the victor powers, you'd think that it was Germany that won the war, and those countries had lost the war. But Germany had been devastated. Most German cities were bombed, some of them nearly to the ground. There's a city in the eastern part of Germany called Dresden. Dresden was razed almost to the ground. But the British, basically, at the time when, in fact, the war had ended, but because of the anger of what had happened, bombing of London and so on, it was a revenge bombing. But the Germans reconstructed. And at that time, West Germany was the strongest economy in Western Europe. And East Germany was also the strongest economy in Eastern Europe at that time. That was basically because of hard work. I want to say that a year after our election, if you ask Kenyans, are you better off today than you were at this time last year? The answer will be obvious, that we are in a deep hole. Failing policies and grim economic prospects. There's a devastating loss of trust and confidence in our economy, our financial markets, and our government. We are caught in a cycle where reduced spending power leads to loss of jobs, which leads to even less spending, where the people can't borrow because rates charged are too high, yet lack of borrowing slows growth and leads to even less credit. Credible data collected and published by the government confirms all this grim news. And this meeting is taking place as a day after the State of the Nation address by the President. I'm going to try to answer some of the things that he said yesterday. But this is not a response. At the Hustler Fund, which was supposed to support households and micro enterprises, default on payments at a higher rate than those at the commercial banks, SACCOs, and microfinance. Out of the Hustler Fund's outstanding, that is 10.2 billion shillings worth of loans in the last 9 months, 29% is deemed to be portfolio at risk, implying it has not been serviced by the borrowers as per agreed schedule. This means that borrowed amounts worth about 2.9 billion shillings in Hustler Fund loans fall in the category of non-performing loans. Job cuts are back to the rate where they were during the COVID. According to the CBK survey, more than a quarter of chief executives expect to cut jobs before the end of the year because of increased operating costs and softened demand for goods and services, setting up families for a gloomy festivities period. The Central Bank of Kenya is the survey that targeted CEOs of more than 1,000 private sector firms through online questionnaires shows that 26.3% of those surveyed expect to cut their workforce between now and the end of the year, while 63.5% will not be hiring any new staff. At the Nairobi Security Exchange, some 6,256 foreign investors fled in the last 9 months. This is 42% of foreign investors in the country. This exodus is a result of the rapid but unstable tax policies that are scaring away foreign investors and leading to low revenue collections. In October, the same National Security Exchange was ranked the worst performing African bars in the first 9 months of the year in dollar returns. Investors prefer a country with a stable taxation policy, a stable currency, and a growing economy. The current regime is changing tax policy frequently, mismanaging the shilling, and weakening economic growth. Kenyans are ditching mobile payments. A number of local SMEs using payment methods such as pay bills and Lipa na M-Pesa are now asking their customers to use cash when paying for goods and services to avoid taxation. fuel consumption fell rapidly between January and June, dropping to the lowest levels in the more than 5 years. Up to 85% of firms are not paying corporate taxes. At least 8 in 10 companies in Kenya did not pay taxes on earnings last financial year. This signals a tough economic environment that hit sales, prompting some businesses to scale down operations. The Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, missed its revenue target for the first quarter of the current financial year by 79 billion Kenya shillings. Of course, the story of the Kenya shilling on a free fall bears no repeating. It is obvious to everybody. From 120 to the dollar to now 159. I could go on and on, but I beg to stop there so that we can get into what Azimio thinks. The fact is, many Kenyans are both anxious and uncertain of what the future holds. The country is going through a recipe of policy mistakes, failures, and shortcomings served in an authoritarian, paternalistic leadership style. Nobody in government cares about building broad public support around these programs. Everything is forced down everyone's throats. In the run-up to 2022 election, we warned that the sectors of every economy are intertwined, and you cannot benefit one sector by denying the other. We warned that Kenya Kwanza was never going to help the hustlers by robbing the rich and the middle class. In the wake of the Finance Act of 2023, we warned that no nation can ever tax its citizens into prosperity. We are concerned that it is getting too late to change the course. We fear that consequences of the foundation laid in the first year of this administration could linger for years if nothing is done. Our country could lose the competitive edge that it has always had in the region and sub-Saharan Africa. This bad situation could easily get out of hand. What is to be done? For us in Azimio, reduction in the cost of living is a priority economic imperative. This will be achieved by providing some basic relief to citizens, including reduction of taxes and stimulating production. To release resources to achieve these objectives, government must cut the budget by an estimated 500 billion shillings. The current policies have hit low-income families particularly hard. These are the same low-income families that the administration promised to lift up. These families spend more than 40% of their income on food. They deserve and require relief. In particular, we must cut fuel taxes and raise social welfare payments. At this time of duress, we demand tax cuts, not increases. Kenyans need to see their taxes go down, not up. We believe the current taxation regime is not sustainable. We warned at the beginning that beyond a certain point, increasing taxes leads to lower collection. It has become real as Kenya Revenue Authority misses one revenue target after another. Tax on fuel is up, but fuel levy collection is down. We were during this as a result of our experience when we formed government under NASA. Under NASA, we found an economy that was stagnant, and the growth was negative. Revenue collection was very low, and the Paris Club had actually clamped down on the government. So the government was actually just limping. And when we came into government, what we did was to address the two sides of the balance sheet, income and expenditure. We found out the government was collecting 200 billion shillings of all that was being collected. We looked at the sources of revenue, customs duty, income tax, the VAT, and so on. And then the other side, expenditure, how they were procuring. You looked at revenue officers, those officers in the customs, in the income tax department, in the VAT, and procurement officers in all the ministries. They were the boys in town. They're the ones who are buying apartment blocks in town, the ones who are driving the latest models of cars, Mercedes, Toyota, what have you. They're the ones who are building castles in rural areas. They're the ones who are building high-rise buildings in village markets. If you did a lifestyle audit, you're able to catch them. And we did lifestyle audits and caught very many of them. We sacked some we sent to jail. And all of a sudden, revenue rose up. From 200 billion shillings, within the 6 months from January to June, we went up by 100 billion shillings. We collected 300 billion shillings. So you said the answer is not to increase taxes, but to spread out, widen the net, and lower the taxes, and we get more revenue. The following year, it went 500 billion, 700 billion, 900, we reached $1 trillion. We were able to finance most of our budget from local resources without having to borrow from donors. 95% of our development expenditure was coming from local revenue. And that's why we were advising the inadvisable that you don't have to increase taxes to get revenue. Procurement, because you can raise revenue, but it all just goes into people's pockets. We found that under Moi, there was a procurement law which says that any item above 100,000 shillings had to procure competitively. In other words, you have to advertise in at least 3 newspapers. There must be at least 3 bidders, and you procure competitively. Each and every ministry has a procurement officer seconded from the treasury who was in charge. We found that each procurement officer had 3 companies registered. And there was a kind of a cartel and a collusion. The one in Ministry of Finance is supplying Ministry of Education. The one in Education is supplying health. One is health is supplying roads. One road is supplying agriculture. And if you are the tender, there will be 3 companies. All those 3 belong to one person. And because the building, the commission, which is shared among various commission officers. An item that's supposed to be procured at 100,000 shillings goes for 5 million shillings. And that's where the money is being lost. These ones, again, we did lifestyle audit. We sacked some of them. We jailed some of them. The government was now procuring competitively. And that is how we manage that economy. So you need to stimulate production. Interest rates need to come down in order to stimulate economic activity. This is particularly urgent and critical, given that in the Finance Act of 2023, the regime is pursuing higher spending and taxes for the next 2 years. Businesses will obviously pass the costs to consumers, worsening the cost of living further. We needed to invest in direct relief to individuals through programs that put money directly into the people's pockets, which is why we asked the Kenya Kwanza to continue with and expand the Kazi Mtaani program. And it can be expanded the way we did it ourselves there, Kazi kwa vijana, to the rural areas as well. Investment in labor-intensive programs like road construction, rural water systems, afforestation, and so on. This has proven over the years to yield positive results. We believe that putting money into construction of schools' infrastructure would yield better returns than the construction of houses through taxation. Kenyans deserve a raise in the average minimum wage. We should also stop mismanagement of public finances. The country must embrace better fiscal discipline. We do not have to increase our budget in order to look important. State Department with overlapping functions need to be scrapped. Why do we have coordination of international development partnerships at both the Deputy President's Office and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, complete with budget lines, while the National Treasury also runs an external resources department? At the same time, we need to stop duplication of devolved functions at national level. You have a situation where the national government is competing with the counties in several other functions which are constitutionally devolved, like health, like agriculture, like water, and so on. Why should the national government be the one procuring fertilizers and distributing it to the county government when agriculture is devolved? How about drugs and so on? A few weeks ago, the Controller of Budget told the country that the National Treasury over-budgeted salaries of state officers, including hers, by 3 times, leading to the loss of over 1 billion shillings. The Controller of Budget detailed how the Treasury has been over-budgeting salaries of senior government officials through the Consolidated Fund Services. So far, nobody has been made to bear responsibility for this budgeted corruption. We know very well that regional authorities duplicate county functions. Where do we retain them? Complete with budgets. To those doubting Thomases within the regime, these measures above will release the estimated 500 billion shillings required to bring back the economy on an even keel. Realistic debt management. Currently, Kenya is caught in a debt rut where it has resorted to borrowing more to repay debt. It makes no sense to us to borrow more to repay debt when debt is already too high. It amounts digging when you're already in a deep hole. Our position is that the National Treasury ought to ask creditors to push up payments falling due to a future date rather than keep paying it. This is what people do when they have a crunch in their finances, but know they can pay later when their income is higher. Rescheduling debt is not at the same time as the same thing as debt default. People default when they are bankrupt. Kenya is not bankrupt. Kenya should not default. By rescheduling debt payments falling due, the government can forgo punitive taxes and create room for critical social and economic spending. In conclusion, 1 year on since the inception of new government, this is the time to reset the economic policy broadly. And you're not going to set this broadly by mere rhetorics, by talking and making promises to the people, empty promises. The effectiveness of government by key initiatives, including the Hatta Fund, should be reviewed by a forum comprised of the government, political parties, the business community, and the civil society. This is what should be happening. And if this happens, we will be able to come up with proper solution to the problem that we are facing today. The government today is living in denial. If you listen to the State of the Nation address yesterday, if you were talking to some people who are living in planet Moon, you are not being realistic to problems confronting this country. And these problems must be confronted frontally, not by trying to give diversions here and there. We have said today that the cost of living is real and is killing the people. It has to be addressed if you are going to actually relieve the plight of the people of this country. This is our position as Azimio. Now, finally, Madam, you've written there, Raila Odinga ran for presidency 5 times and lost 5 times. In other words, and each time he complained that he did not lose. I accepted losing elections in 1997. I said I'd lost and accepted. In 2007, the jury is out there. Everybody knows what happened. In 2013, everybody knows. 2017, people know. 2022, some of you are around in the country. The so-called Independent Electoral Boundary Commission had 7 commissioners. Out of those 7 commissioners, 4 said no. 3 are the ones who said yes. But 4 said no. And they even have come before the Kalonzo team and have said no. And they have said that the chairman erred, that up to now he has not published the results of the elections in accordance to the law. And to me, they say that 4 is bigger than 3. If the majority say that I won the elections, I cannot say I lost it. Yes. And that's why, irrespective of what the Supreme Court said, I thank you very much.
Another round of applause for our guests this afternoon. Thank you so much for your patience When you look at your programs were to end earlier, but it was important this final day we stay until this time without wasting so much time. I want to once again welcome Honorable Gitonga Mukunji so that he now finally takes us through the conference communique, some of the resolutions as we go home. Welcome, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Before I read the communique, I have seen some members of parliament who have joined us, and I would like to recognize them. I have seen Honorable Jared Okello. Please just wave to the congregation. That is a member of parliament, Nyando. I have also seen Honorable Junet Mohammed. He is a minority whip and the member of parliament, Suna East. I want to read the communique of this conference, and it is my humble duty to do that. Transforming a Nation Conference Communique. Date November 10th, 2023, in Nairobi, Kenya. Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, KAS, a distinguished German political think tank close to Christian Democratic Party with a presence in over 120 countries worldwide, spearheaded the Transforming a Nation Conference held on November 9th and 10th, 2023 at Nairobi's Radisson Blu Hotel in Upper Hill. Rooted in a commitment to fostering democracy and economic